After the passers-by ate in the Dragon Ball, their martial arts became great, and then they made a big noise in other anime worlds. The protagonist of the tail line is a beautiful woman who abducts a childish loli. Carry on the journey to the end. Keywords of the novel. Crossers crossover anime world with no pop-ups, Crossers crossover anime world TXT complete collection download, Crossers crossover anime world latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Welcome to Dragon Ball. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Welcome to Dragon Ball. Duran has been in this world for 3 months now. Although he knew that this world was the world of the Dragon Ball, the place where Duran landed was too remote, and there was not even a TV in the small village. So Duran doesn't know the current time, not even where she is. So Duran can only stay in this village and hunt for food every day. The only thing we can do now is wait. When autumn comes, there will be wandering merchants coming to the village to exchange things. At that time, Duran can have the traveler take him out of the village, so that Duran also has the opportunity to go to places where he knows his name. For example, places like Zizadu, Baozi Mountain, and Penguin Village. Duran lay on a rock and looked at a terrifying animal, a dinosaur, thousands of meters away with his amazing eyesight. Autumn is coming, and foot traders are coming. So Duran decided to catch a large prey in exchange for some chips. The gray rough scales covered the entire body of the dinosaur like rocks. The thick limbs supported the huge body, and although Duran didn't know what kind of dinosaur it was, he felt that it was definitely not the kind of gentle dinosaur. Because the dinosaur had a sharp horn on its head, and the teeth in its mouth were sharp, especially the canine teeth, which emitted a cold light. Duran was hiding in the downwind, and his nose could already smell the stench of the unknown dinosaur. Duran frowned, thinking about how he could keep the dinosaurs in good condition. Before, Duran was careless in hunting, and his good fur was ruined by him. This time, in exchange for chips, Duran needs to come up with a way to keep the prey intact. If you use gas, you can easily kill that dinosaur, but it's definitely not possible to exchange it for a good price, Duran thought. His strength is not enough now. Otherwise, it would be like an animation, just knock the dinosaur unconscious. By the way, you can anger it and let it crash into the mountain on its own. Thinking of a solution, Duran rushed forward directly. Evil beasts, suffer death. The gray dinosaur clearly didn't notice Duran. That's right, Duran is like the difference between an elephant and an ant compared to him. But after Duran made a move, it was different. Duran only jumped a few times and had already reached the top of the dinosaur. With his right hand clenched, he hit the scales hard. The rock-like scales couldn't withstand Duran's hard blow and shattered, and Duran's fist sank directly in. Roar! The dinosaur felt pain, shouted loudly, and then jumped up irritably. Duran took advantage of the dinosaur's back and jumped towards its head. Another heavy blow shattered the scales of the dinosaur. The dinosaur shouted even louder and also noticed Duran constantly jumping around, swinging the sharp corners on the head to reach Duran. Seeing that she had already caught the attention of the dinosaurs, Duran began to provoke even more fiercely. At the same time, Duran was constantly adjusting his position, hoping that when the dinosaurs collided, there would be a large rock behind Duran. After successfully angering the dinosaurs, Duran intentionally distanced himself from them. Dinosaurs only engage in collision behavior over long distances, which is the experience that Duran summarized after hunting several dinosaurs. With Duran's current strength, he stopped talking about hunting dinosaurs. After several attempts, the dinosaurs finally couldn't bear it anymore and launched a collision. Although it took a lot of time, Duran felt it was still worth it. Apart from a few broken scales, this dinosaur remained intact, and of course, its skull may have also been shattered. The dinosaur was very big, and Duran had to put in some effort during transportation when hunting such a large prey for the first time. Because Duran did not have the power to lift dinosaurs, it can be said that his strength now relies solely on the inexhaustible energy of his body, and his physical fitness can only be considered average strength. Although Duran is also training her body now, neither pushing rocks nor pulling logs has significantly increased her strength. What Duran really wants now is to have an artificial gravity chamber, and also the kind that can be placed in convenient capsules. Of course, the only scientists with this ability are probably the pervert from Penguin Village and the Buma father and daughter from the western capital. In autumn, four traveling merchants drove their carriages unsteadily into the village. Although Dragon Ball World has also added to Earth, its technological development is indeed very advanced, but many regions still maintain their primitive style. Just like the carriage of a traveling merchant. The dinosaurs that Duran hunted were of great help to Duran, so Duran successfully negotiated with the traveling merchant. After waiting for a week, Duran finally rode out in a carriage and left the simple village where he had lived for several months. After a month of wandering, Duran finally arrived at the legendary capital of the West. During the month, Duran spent most of his time on mountain roads. After arriving in the small town, it only took a few days for him to travel to the western capital. Duran's original plan was to get to know more about that small town. But when she arrived in the small town, Duran suddenly had an impulse, so she hurriedly bought a plane ticket and transferred several flights to the West capital. In these days, Duran has gained some understanding of the time period in this world, and Satan has not yet appeared. In theory, the situation of a mass death has not yet appeared. Duran felt very relieved about this person, at least he still had time to buffer it. In the capital of the West, with Duran's current identity, there is no opportunity to visit the Buma family. Fortunately, Duran did not immediately enter the gravity chamber for training. Now his first task is to understand the era. Dulon searched for the list of champions of various world first martial arts championships to see if there were familiar names like Jackie Chan, Tianjin Fan, and Sun Wukong. Finally, at the end of the list, Duran saw the names of Jackie Chan and Tianjin Fan, which means it is now the time period for the Big Demon King. The Big Demon King has not yet appeared. In that case, Sun Wukong should be collecting Dragon Balls in order to revive Klin. Duran calculated, if you want to find Sun Wukong, first, go to Kalinda to find the Cat Fairy. Regardless of whether Sun Wukong encounters the Beak Demon King or not, the Cat Fairy always knows where Sun Wukong is going. The second way is to go directly to Buma to build a Dragon Ball radar. Finally, Duran decided to go to Kalinda, because the fairy beans of Cat Fairy are much more attractive than Dragon Ball. I bought a basic set of convenient capsules in Zizadu, and Duran has not yet learned the art of dancing, so flying is necessary. And Duran also made a set of weight-bearing clothes, ready to wear them when climbing Karinda. The autonomous robot piloted the spaceship without taking a detour, and it only took Duran 2 days to reach the bottom of Karinda. Carrying a heavy load, Duran looked up at the towering tower towering into the clouds. Spitting 2 mouthfuls into her palms, Duran hugged the tower with both hands and kicked her feet up, rubbing against it and running for a while. To be honest, climbing the tower is very tiring. Duran has never engaged in such sustained physical activity before. When hunting before, it was just a quick battle with the help of Chi. But now, after only climbing for half a day, Duran is already panting heavily. Duran took out the prepared rope and tied himself to the tower. He didn't want to fall off carelessly. Although Duran had an endless stream of chi in his body, he didn't know how to use it. So if Duran falls from such a high place, it will definitely turn into meat paste. Fixing herself in place, Duran took out the food. At this speed, Duran found that it would take him at least a month and a half to climb up. With a sigh, Duran closed her eyes and prepared to rest for a while longer. Coretta is very tall, as Duran knows. When he actually climbs, he still curses at who built the tower so high. Fortunately, after more than 10 days, Duran also began to get used to repeatedly exercising her limbs. The weather today is a bit dull, with dark clouds covering the sky and muffled thunder on the horizon. Duran frowned. It wasn't that he had never encountered a rainy day before, but today's rain may be heavier than before. And there may also be lightning. The thunderstorm came as soon as it came, and the terrifying thunder exploded around Corinda. Duran's scalp was tingling, and he didn't know if he should continue to stop here, wait for the rain to pass, or start up immediately. Speaking of which, Duran was just an ordinary person before his travels. Although he became a perpetual motion machine for no reason, he still couldn't make a quick decision to drive away disasters and avoid them. Lightning was like being by her side, and Duran's eardrums were almost shattered. Finally, Duran decided to continue upward, yes, to continue upward. Diverting attention can make Duran forget her fear. The wind is strong, and her crawling speed is half that of usual, but she spends 3 or 4 times more effort than usual. But Duran still gritted her teeth and climbed upwards, not daring to slack off at all. This indeed reduced Duran's fear of lightning. Duran focused all her attention on climbing the tower, which unconsciously increased her speed. In the wind and rain, Duran's speed unexpectedly became the same as usual. It's another new day, and Duran's clothes have worn out a lot. Fortunately, she still has a set of load-bearing clothes on her body, so it doesn't let Duran's spring light shine. After being washed by thunderstorms, Duran found that her climbing speed on the tower had increased significantly. Of course, as the height increased, Duran felt that the effort required to climb the tower also increased. Duran thought it was because of the scarcity of oxygen at high altitudes that his physical exertion accelerated. With her limbs constantly exerting force, Duran can now climb the tower continuously for more than 10 hours, and her physical fitness has significantly improved. On this day, which was the 5th day after the thunderstorm, Duran, who had just had breakfast, climbed for several more hours when it suddenly turned dark. Duran regained consciousness from playing with me, looked at her watch, and said, "It's still early before it gets dark, isn't it? It doesn't seem like it's going to rain." Then this unscientific weather change made Duran think of a possibility, which was that Sun Wukong was defeated and the great demon king summoned the divine dragon. Is it already so fast? Duran felt very embarrassed. He had been climbing for almost a month, and his own life was on the verge of death. He hadn't even reached the top of the tower yet. He wouldn't have been caught up by a Chirobe, would he? That would be too embarrassing. So Duran's face disappeared, because only on the 3rd day after the appearance of the divine dragon, Duran saw a black dot rapidly rushing upwards below. The person who came was Akilobe, and he also carried the heavily injured Sun Wukong on his back. Even faster than a monkey, it had already arrived in front of Duran in a few seconds. Duran smiled awkwardly and said, "Oh, hello, what a coincidence." Akilobe clearly didn't expect to meet anyone again on such a high tower, so he could only subconsciously say, "Yeah, what a coincidence." Looking at Duran's tattered clothes and messy appearance, Akilobe knew that Duran had been climbing for some time. If it were according to a Chirobe's personality, he would definitely mock Duran. But Sun Wukong on his back was still in a coma, and Akilobe had no time to mock Duran. "Is your friend injured? Are you going to seek medical treatment on the tower? Then you go up quickly." Duran pretended to be concerned and watched as a Chirobe climbed up to Corinda. After carrying Sun Wukong on his back, Duran shook his teeth and continued on his journey. This time, Duran shortened the time for eating and sleeping, climbing up continuously for 16 hours a day. He was really dressed up by Akilobe. You should know that in the original story, Akilobe was just a supporting role. His physical quality was so good that Duran felt that the world was really unscientific. Finally, on the 8th day after encountering Achilles, Duran also climbed up the tower. Seeing the legendary cat fairy, it is indeed an unscientific world. Wukong has gone through the baptism of the supernatural water and set off to fight against the great demon king. However, Duran was still curiously munching on his first fairy bean, I don't know if it tastes good. If you don't want to eat, just give it to me. This foodie Yakalob is greedy and not picky about food. Of course, Duran was reluctant to give away the fairy beans, as she knew the importance of fairy beans. Carefully hiding the fairy beans, Duran took out the food he had prepared. Are you quite well prepared, kid? The cat fairy tried to keep her eyes off the food Duran brought out. I have a lot, do you two want to eat together? Duran knows that there are many big eaters in this world, and even after his travels, Duran's appetite has increased significantly. Seeing Duran taking out as much food as a small mountain, the cat fairy and Arkalob were not polite. 3 people indulged in eating and drinking, enjoying themselves to the fullest. Alright, let's talk about your purpose, young man. After finishing his meal, the cat fairy washed his face with his paws and asked Duran. After Duran traveled through time, she also returned to her youth, probably another benefit of the journey. I came to Corinda to inquire about the usage of chi from the cat fairy. Oh. The cat fairy had never seen a guest who came directly to ask about chi before. How much do you know about chi? Duran took a deep breath and set aside his description of chi from the manga. Chi is actually a manifestation of power. There is chi, or power, in the human body. After training, the quality and quantity of chi will increase. When a person focuses on guiding chi, chi can be emitted from the body. The cat fairy nodded and said, You're absolutely right. Since you already know the principle of chi, you should also know how to use chi. Why are you asking me? Duran felt very embarrassed, but he knew that whether it was Sun Wukong, Klin, or Tianjin Fan, they only created many moves on their own after learning about their anger. Klin's Qi Yuan Slash, Yamucha's Qi Control Bullet, or Sun Wukong's Turtle-style Qigong, which can turn, are all derived from their own thinking. Cat Fairy, I know about Qi and can also use it easily, but I think Qi has more than just that, but I have never had a clear idea, that's why I came here. The Cat Fairy licked his paws and looked at Duran, so how do you use Qi? Duran stood in the center of the hall, reached out with both hands and pushed forward, performing a technique commonly seen in ancient costume films to heal injuries. Adjusting her breathing, Duran felt the slowly flowing breath in her body, guiding it towards her palm. A spot of light appeared in front of her palm, and Duran shouted, Go, Buddha's palm. The air that flew out turned into the shape of her palm. It's not Duran pretending to be forced, it's really Duran's lack of control over Qi. After leaving the body, the energy ball accumulated by Qi will disperse. So Duran simply named this move Tathagata Divine Palm, which can be considered appropriate. Also relying on this move, Duran ruined countless prey. However, in the eyes of experts, Duran's move is really weak and explosive, with no killing power at all, because its power is too scattered. The Cat Fairy shook his head, knowing how terrible Duran's manipulation of Qi was. Are you shooting mosquitoes? Yaklob roast. Alright, it's actually very easy to learn Qi. Just drink the super divine water, said the Cat Fairy, using his paw and cane to point to the bottle on the gorgeous pillar in the center of the hall. Duran certainly knew that the supernatural water in that bottle was just ordinary water, and what was truly important was receiving training from the Cat Fairy. Thank you, Cat Fairy. Don't rush to thank me first. Whether you can drink depends on your own abilities. As he spoke, the cat Immortal spun 720 degrees in the air and stopped steadily on the pillar, hanging the bottle of super divine water on his scepter. Come on, as long as you grab it, you can drink super divine water. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Apprenticeship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Apprenticeship. The training of Cat Fairy mainly focuses on perception and control of the body. At this stage, even if Dulan uses Qi, it is just adding insult to injury, and it will not help him seize the super divine water in any way. However, even if Duran knew the purpose of the Cat Fairy training team, there was still a long way to go to succeed. Because he is different from the simple Sun Wukong, he has too many ideas and is not easy to concentrate. During training, Duran was fully immersed and unaware of the sun and moon. When Duran finally caught up with the pace of the cat fairy, Sun Wukong returned. Wukong has defeated the great demon King Bic and saved the earth for the first time. Sun Wukong was indeed very cute when he was a child, and Duran couldn't help but pinch him a few times. I just can't believe that such a child has saved the entire earth from the hands of the big demon king. Sun Wukong's destination was the divine realm, so he only greeted Duran and Duran didn't have much intention of getting close. Duran's strength is really poor now. In a few days, Duran's body had become very agile and could catch up with the movements of the cat fairy. Duran knew that as long as she judged the movements of the cat fairy, she could get the supernatural water. However, Duran is still at a loss for controlling Qi, but she is confident that she will proficiently use Qi for perception in the coming time. Qi, a very magical thing. It can be used for attack, flight, and perception. Duran continuously exhaled her own breath from her body, then withdrew it and began to control the quantity and shape of her breath. Duran is not a person from this world, nor does he possess the super-sensitivity of people like Sun Wukong inclined to Qi. So Duran can only constantly familiarize himself with his Qi and train it to become a part of his body, just like the existence of hands and feet. Repeatedly training, and with the guidance of the cat Immortal by Duran's side, Duran's progress is very fast. At least now, when he uses techniques such as air bombs, he will not become the Buddha's palm. Finally, a month later, Duran drank the supernatural water like plain water as he wished. No, to be precise, it should be plain water with the name super divine water. The results of the training were obvious. Duran stood next to Coretta and performed a classic move, Turtle Pie Qigong. Duran pushed out the shining Qigong waves with both hands. At this level, it's almost as powerful as a full blow from the Turtle Immortal. Duran looked at her hands and felt her progress. This means that Duran's combat effectiveness is almost 130. Of course, it's still far behind Sun Wukong and the others, but Duran is limited by his physical fitness and cannot use the endless supply of Qi in his body, so his combat effectiveness is limited. To further strengthen her body, Duran can only continue to polish it. Of course, if there is a need for combat, Duran also needs to undergo combat training or directly engage in combat with warriors. So Duran thought of finding the Turtle Immortal for combat training, but before that, Duran decided to first learn the dance of the sky technique and then find the Turtle Immortal. After mastering the use of Qi, learning the technique of dancing in the air was twice the result with half the effort. In just 2 days, Duran was already able to fly in mid-air. Of course, this also shows that Duran did not have much talent, and Satan's daughter Bidalite only spent 3 days from practicing breathing to flying freely. Compared to the martial artists in the original work, Du Lan is extremely weak. After living in Corinda for nearly 2 months, Duran finally decided to set off to the Guixian. However, before leaving, Duran asked the cat fairy for a bag of fairy bean seeds and a large bucket of fairy beans. The cat fairy was still very generous, which made Duran feel embarrassed. He said he would definitely bring something delicious in the future. There are less than 3 years left until the next martial arts festival, and Sun Wukong is receiving training in the divine realm, while the Piccolo has not yet grown up. Duran needs to hurry up. He plans to attend the next world's first martial arts meeting. When he was on Earth, Duran was a law-abiding little person, but in the Dragon Ball world, he had a perpetual motion machine cheat inside his body. And in the world of Dragon Ball, where martial arts make friends, Duran's dormant battle genes are also about to awaken. It's difficult to find the home of Gue Xianren, but the cat Xianren has already provided Du Lan with a detailed address, so Du Lan won't get lost. A small island, a coconut tree, a house, beach chairs, and umbrellas. Du Lan, who had learned the art of dancing in the air, raced on the sea for several hours before arriving at the residence of the Turtle Fairy. A bald old man, a young man with 3 bald heads, a beautiful woman, and a turtle attracted Duran. Who are you? Clin looked at Duran with a wicked expression in his eyes. The strongest earthling in the future is just a young boy who hasn't grown up yet. On the other hand, Tianjin Fan is also on guard. He, who has just reformed, is now receiving training at the Gue Xian Ren's place. Another thing is that the dumplings have no sense of existence. Although they are wearing a hat, Duran knows that the dumplings are also bald. Are you Clin, a disciple of Master Wu Tian? Duran looked at Clin, who was only as tall as her chest, and said, I'm here to find Master Wu Tian for combat practice. This time Clin didn't speak, but the old man next to him said, you go back, I won't take any more disciples. Dulan still admires the turtle fairy. A noble martial artist, a good teacher, or a fearless warrior. Are you teacher Wu Tian? It was Corinda's cat fairy who asked me to come. Carrying out the cat fairy, turtle fairy also gave Duran some face. Oh. Have you ever seen the fairy Caroline? Yes, I received training from the cat fairy in Corinda, Duran said. Since you have already drunk the supernatural water, why are you still coming to me? I want to train in combat. The turtle fairy nodded and remained silent for a while before saying, I won't accept it anymore, disciple. But if it's just about learning combat, I can give some guidance. And my disciples also need a pair of opponents to practice against. Thank you, Teacher Wu Tian. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Training. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Training for Fighting. Duran is completely inexperienced. Although he had watched various combat videos before crossing over, hunted in the Dragon Ball world, and snatched the super divine water in Corinda, he still didn't even enter the door for battle Duran. So for the future with continuous battles, Duran needs more exercise. The Clin people are pretty good, but during the battle, they haven't learned to be merciful yet, and Duran's face has been affected. Little Bald, are you jealous that I look handsome than you, that's why you keep hitting me in the face? Duran covered her face and said vaguely. Clin scratched the smooth back of his head and said, ha ha ha, how could that be? However, Duran's small bald words didn't make Clin angry, but they made dumplings. During the battle, Duran often couldn't control her body and her body's air flow became slow. However, Du Lanming's sharp discovery is that this suppression of qi is beneficial for his own training, it's still helpful. So Duran ignored the dumplings and once again rushed towards Clin. He knew that in order to maintain his handsome face, he had to constantly strive for growth. Duran, who only fights with his body, is clearly not a match for Clin. But fortunately, this is Duran's destination. I'm going up. Duran was full of enthusiasm. Come on, young Clin was also a battle maniac. Bang, spray. The sound of air breaking through the air kept ringing, and the two of them kept coming and going on the island. The excitement of the battle was not inferior to that of the world's top martial arts sect. The Tianjin food next to him was also eager to try, and he jumped into the battle circle, and then both sides of Duran's face were beaten. The turtle fairy held a naturally colored magazine in his hand, but his eyes were slanted to observe the battles of Clin, Tianjin Fan, and Duran. The growth of Clin and Wukong made the turtle fairy proud. Especially Wukong, the grandson of his own disciple and also his own grandson, surprisingly Ran has grown to dress up as the big demon king. The corner of the turtle fairy's mouth curled up and she said, all right, let's eat first. Lan Chi, who had a split personality, prepared enough food and surrounded the table with 6 people and 1 turtle. Speaking of which, what's your name? Clin asked with meat in his mouth. Tianjin rice and dumplings also stopped and looked at Du Lan. Duran suddenly remembered that she had not yet introduced herself. My name is Duran, and I am the man who needs to travel the world first. Duran had already set a goal for herself, recording the customs and traditions of the entire earth. Not bad, young man. The turtle fairy nodded, still agreeing with Duran's wish. But Kling felt indifferent, he had no interest in traveling at all. Tianjin rice and dumplings didn't make much difference, as their presence remained low thereafter. Although Tianjin Fan will still come out in the final Buo chapter, and his Qigong Cannon Sun Fist is a brilliant move throughout the entire Dragon Ball. After finishing the meal, Dulan asked the Turtle Fairy about her own questions, and the Turtle Fairy also answered them one by one. Finally, Duran remembered that the weight on her body needed to be changed, so she asked Turtle Immortal, Teacher Wu Tian, I don't know where the weight is, but it's on me. This set no longer meets my needs, ah. You've been carrying a heavy load all this time. Klein shouted. Tianjin rice and dumplings also looked at Dulan in surprise. Duran nodded and said, it's just a set of 15 kilograms. I've been carrying it since climbing Corinda. I can't feel the weight anymore when I move around. Hearing that it's only 15 kilograms, Klin felt relieved. He and Sun Wukong were originally carrying 20 kilograms of turtle shells. And recently, Klin has been preparing to switch to a 40-kilogram one, just like the Turtle Fairy usually wears, Duran, otherwise it's just like me. Let's carry 40 kilograms as well. Teacher Wu Tian also nodded and said, you come up. He stopped in front of a wardrobe, which was not clothes but a set of turtle shells. Duran was sweating profusely. He had forgotten that the weight of the Turtle Fairy was all turtle shells, which made him feel a lot of pressure. Isn't there anything normal? The Turtle Fairy pouted and said, do you want it? Duran quickly apologized and obediently picked up the turtle shells, and the days of hardship came. Due to being overseas, Klin and Duran also had to be responsible for purchasing from the shore, and the Turtle Fairy demanded that the turtle shell never leave the body. So Duran feels that every purchase is a torment, shame play. The weight has increased and the training has become even harder, but Duran clearly feels that his physical fitness has improved, and the energy in his body can also be mobilized more. Fighting against the three of Klin every day, I gradually became familiar with their combat skills, and Duran didn't always get slapped. Occasionally, he could also knock Klin down to the ground, which satisfied Duran. Half a year later, Duran changed her load again, switching from 40 kilograms to 50 kilograms. And Tianjin rice, dumplings, Klin, and Yamu Ti have arranged to climb Karen Tower. A person's training is boring, but in order to participate in the next world's first martial arts association, Duran can only endure this kind of boredom. Finally, the 23rd world's first martial arts association has begun. Turtle-style Qigong. Duran's first full output, the C in front of the Turtle Immortal house was cut in half by Duran's turtle-style Qigong. Duran estimated that her combat power could also compete with the Piccolo. Dulan, are you ready? Gue Xianren said. After Tianjin Fan and Kellen left, Gue Xianren fully taught Dulan, a fighting novice, and took Dulan as his disciple, closing the door as his disciple. Teacher, you're ready. After training for 3 years in a black suit, Duran stood tall and grew quite a bit. Once you're ready, let's go. Don't ask me, this old man, to remind you of everything. The Turtle Fairy threw the package into Dulan's hand and looked at Lan Chi walking down the stairs with a smile on her face. Young people nowadays don't understand respecting teachers and valuing morals. Dulan was speechless. After accepting him as a disciple, the Turtle Fairy became obscene and didn't even consider him an outsider. However, Duran still respected the Turtle Immortal very much. After Klin and Tianjin rice dumplings left, the Turtle Immortal deliberately moved the Turtle Immortal house to Ku, the continent where Lin and Wukong practiced. Starting from scratch, teaching Duran to replace her 50-kilogram load with 80 kilograms took Duran 3 years to make herself feel no longer burdened. When you arrive at the venue, you can see Sun Wukong and Klin again. Duran grew up watching Dragon Ball comics and was very fond of several characters in the story. Klin and Tianjin rice dumplings can also be considered as Duran's fighting enlightenment. Do you know Wukong? The turtle fairy thought that Duran only knew Klin and Tianjin Fan. Yes, 3 years ago in Corinda. At that time, I was still competing for the super divine water and had met Sun Wukong once. Duran replied, but that time was just a brief acquaintance. This time, Duran has confidence to stand in front of Sun Wukong as an opponent. The venue of the world's top martial arts sect is on a small island, which is also full of disasters and difficulties. The Saya people and their opponents are not ordinary warriors, and they often destroy the surface. I don't know when Wukong and Klin will arrive, said the turtle fairy, like an ordinary old man worried about the younger generation. Don't worry, master. Du Lan was eating a hamburger, and he wasn't worried about his senior brothers. They will definitely arrive. Lan Chi comforted the turtle fairy on the side. However, before meeting his senior brother, Duran first met the famous genius scientist Burma. Upon seeing the beautiful woman, the turtle fairy recovered into a sleazy gentleman. There are also several supporting role of Oolong, and Du Lan has seen them one by one. This is my last disciple, Du Lan, the turtle fairy introduced to the crowd. Duran is not a super handsome guy, so he didn't make Burma crazy. However, Duran knew that as long as she got to know each other, if she had any problems in the future, she could turn to Bulma for help. While boasting to everyone, Duran suddenly felt a breath approaching from behind. After coming down from Corinda, Duran's anger has become a part of him, but he has not yet been able to fully unleash the potential of perpetual motion. The newcomer's aura was very strong. Duran turned around and there was already a person standing behind him. Grandpa, long time no see. The voice of the person who suddenly appeared behind Duran sounded very happy. Gue Xian Ren and Bulma looked at that person, feeling somewhat familiar but unable to recall knowing such a person. It's me, Grandpa Gue Xian, Wukong, Wukong. The person who came was Sun Wukong, who rushed back from the heavenly realm. It's really you, Wukong. Bulma looked at Wukong, who was already taller than him, and still couldn't believe it. She was the first person to meet Sun Wukong, and now seeing him grow up is truly emotional. It's good to be here, Klin and the others haven't arrived yet. We'll go sign up together later. The turtle fairy also looked pleased. By the way, let me introduce Wukong. This is Duran, my last disciple. Duran reached out his hand and said, it's been a long time since I've seen Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong's memory is still good, and Duran has only grown a little taller, and her appearance hasn't changed. Ah. You're the person from Karen Fairy's place. He said, you could feel me just now, you're very strong. Have a chance to have a fight. It's so glorious. Duran was so excited, her idol, and it felt so good to be recognized by her idol. Here we go. Wukong's aura was not inferior to that of Duran. Duran also felt 4 auras, which were very familiar with her senior brothers. Oh, Klin, Tianjin rice, Yamu tea, dumplings. Sun Wukong greeted with a smile. Is it really Wukong? Klin felt inferior again, thinking that he had grown much taller in 3 years, but compared to Sun Wukong, he was still a short winter melon. However, Klin has also grown a lot and won't worry about his height anymore. Thank you, Wukong. Klin hugged Sun Wukong, I haven't had time to say it. This time, I really want to thank you for using the divine dragon to resurrect me. It's okay. Sun Wukong also hugged Klin. Alright, everyone go sign up. If you don't go, you won't have time, reminded the turtle fairy. In the preliminaries, everyone saw Piccolo, the child of the great demon king. The momentum of the Piccolo is evil and oppressive. Fortunately, everyone was also mentally resilient, and after the Piccolo left, they all recovered. Duran took out the martial arts uniform of the Turtle Immortal and put it on. He knew that the Turtle Immortal had not prepared clothes for his senior brother, but his senior brother was also very visionary. They all prepared Turtle Fairy martial arts costumes for themselves early on. Then came the grouping, with the help of Dumpling's superpowers, avoiding early encounters with fellow disciples. Wukong, Sun Wukong, the pleasant voice reached the ears of Du Lan and others. Of course, Duran knew that the lovely lady who came was Sun Wukong's future wife Chi-Chi, but seeing Sun Wukong completely unrecognized Chi-Chi and running away with anger, he thought it was good. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The first martial arts society in the world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The first martial arts society in the world. Bang. The preliminary round begins. Duran didn't pay attention to his senior brothers anymore, and in Duran's opinion, there was no need to worry about them. Moreover, Duran had no intention of collecting his senior brother's combat power, as his goal was not to become a champion, but rather to participate. Duran stepped onto the arena, feeling the feeling it gave him. You're so pitiful. The opponent had already stood opposite Duran at some point. Recovering from her own feelings, Duran looked at her opponent. The artificial peach white. I didn't expect his first opponent to be him, but Duran wouldn't be afraid. Really? I don't think I'm pitiful. On the contrary, I think it's my luck not to meet Sun Wukong and Klin in the preliminary round. Humph, the miscellaneous pieces of turtle fairy flow. Tao Bai spat out a mouthful of foam. I'll deal with you first, and then I'll go deal with the others. Duran looked at Peach White calmly, without fear, but the opponent himself had to defeat him. For the sake of his own faction, stop talking nonsense, come on. You're in a hurry to die. Tao Bai Bai rushed forward. The intersection of fists marked Duran's first true battle. Duran intends to check her mastery of moves, so she tries to use different moves as much as possible. It's just that, Duran sneered at Peach White. Tao Bai Bai was very angry because this junior made his long attack ineffective. You forced me, she said. Duran knew that Peach White was going to use tricks like the cave wave of the crane Immortal flow. If it were Sun Wukong and the others, they would definitely catch him head-on, but Duran was not prepared for that because it was too foolish. Duran took the lead and Sun Fist blinded Peach White's dog eyes. Duran stepped forward and gave him a heavy blow on the abdomen, then hit Peach White's face, and sent him out of the arena. Look, that's the Sun Fist from the previous champion. There were still many discerning people in the arena. Even Du Lan's senior brothers were surprised that Du Lan could use Sun Fist. Duran's next opponent is a monster wearing a mask, and as soon as he takes the stage, he chatters and doesn't know what he's talking about. However, the mask monster's skills and strength are very good, which makes Duran take them seriously. Duran and the mask monster were glued together for a while, and suddenly he realized that the monster's skills were somewhat familiar. Finally, he realized that this body shape and strength were not the same as the Akai robe on the Caretta. Long time no see, I've forgotten that this guy will also come to the world's top martial arts sect. Yakalob. Duran shouted. Obviously, I didn't expect Duran to recognize me. There's no way, don't shout so loudly. It's not embarrassing to be defeated by you later. Duran Khan said, if you know you'll be defeated by me, why don't you give up on your own? Unexpectedly, just as Duran finished speaking, Akil raised his right hand and said, okay, I'll give up. Duran Khan, knowing that Akai robe was not motivated, did not expect to give up so decisively. The competition is over, you want to treat me to a meal, said Arkalob. And the Kalen fairy is still waiting for you to bring delicious food. Okay, Duran admits to forgetting the promise she made to the cat fairy 3 years ago to bring delicious food. After Yakalob, Duran never met anyone who could compete again and made it to the quarterfinals all the way. The spots for the quarterfinals include Piccolo, Chi-Chi, Sun Wukong, Klin, Tianjin Fan, God of Defeating Dumplings, Yamu Ti, and Duran. The draw results are Du Lan vs Tianjin Fan, Chi-Chi vs Wukong, Bike vs Klin, and Lao Shen vs Lepying. The competition continues. Dulan and Tianjin Fan walked to the official arena of the world's top martial arts club outdoors. Duran's first encounter with a positive character in a manga, Duran still felt a bit stressed. "Duran, I won't be lenient," Tianjin Fan said. "The revenge of slapping face back then will be avenged today." Duran did not show weakness. The host walked out and said, "So the first round of the world's top martial arts club quarterfinals is now starting." As soon as the voice fell, both Dulan and Tianjin Fan disappeared in an instant. But from time to time, the sound of air-shattering impacts could still be heard as the void held its grip. "What's going on? I can't see the movements of the two contestants at all," the host exclaimed excitedly. Dulan also increased her speed to a fast pace, on par with Tianjin cuisine. However, Duran still has his customized 80-kilogram weight-bearing suit on him. That turtle shell is really shameful. Before setting off, Duran ordered a set of weight-bearing clothes that didn't show off the mountains or water. The battle between Dulan and Tianjin Fan excited the other martial brothers as well. Duran enjoyed the process, although not a battle maniac. The passionate feeling during the battle made Duran very enjoy it. "Sun Fist!" Duran shouted loudly, and the dazzling light blinded the spectators. However, although Duran's Sun Fist was unexpected, Tianjin Fan was the one who created it. Duran had just punched, and Tianjin Fan also used the same move in response, Sun Fist. Duran didn't expect the news of the present world to come so quickly, and she had to close her eyes. However, Duran's anger immediately filled the entire room, capturing Tianjin Fan's movements. "Ah! Are both contestants?" Dulan and Tianjin Fan closed their eyes. The host wearing sunglasses looked clearly. "I can't believe it, the two contestants are fighting with their eyes closed." "Dulan, I didn't expect you to make such rapid progress," Tianjin Fan said. "Of course, although my goal is not to be the world's #1, I have to face various dangers on Earth," said Duran. "Take my move, turtle-style Qigong." Duran knows that Tianjin cuisine will not evade challenges. "Wait and see, Duran." Duran took a lunge and closed her hands at her waist, saying, "Turtle. Sect. Qi. Skill. Good day, I'm going to use my moves too," Tianjin Fan shouted, realizing it was also a move of the turtle sect Qigong. Two beams of light collided and continued. This is a rather fierce competition. Of course, Duran, a time traveler with a perpetual motion machine cheating device, is even more powerful, although somewhat mischievous. About 10 minutes later, Tianjin Fan collapsed under the arena, covered in burnt black. "Winner, player Duran," the host exclaimed loudly. Upon hearing the result, Duran quickly jumped down and carried it up, giving Tianjin Rice a fairy bean to eat. Sun Wukong and Klin, who rushed over, also held fairy beans in their hands, but their movements were not as fast as Duran's. Tianjin Fan felt a bit down, but he quickly realized it. Although Dulan was a bit naughty, losing was losing. The second match between Sun Wukong and Chi was more like a martial arts competition for marriage. Of course, only Sun Wukong was confused about the situation. However, the final result was still good, although the other singles were envious, jealous, and resentful. There is no doubt about the result of the third match between Kling and Piccolo. Kling is once again a tragedy. Although Kling has grown a lot, he is still far behind the Nemesian. The fourth match between God and Yamcha was even more tragic. Yamcha didn't complain about losing and performed well with his chi control ball, but he was still knocked down by God's punch. So the semi-finals were confirmed, with Duran against Sun Wukong and Piccolo against God. End of this chapter. Chapter 5 is titled Wu Taidou. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 is titled Wu Taidou. The sound of gongs and drums rises. "I didn't expect to face you so soon," Sun Wukong said excitedly, as Dulan was a formidable opponent he felt. "Yeah, Fortunately we all have fairy beans, so we don't need to worry about anything, Duran said. Of course, there was also a Piccolo watching behind them. Ah, yes. Sun Wukong thought like Dulon. Duran mobilized her body's chi and fought against Sun Wukong. Without the assistance of chi, it was not possible. I'm going to go up, she said. The two of them once again disappeared in front of the audience. Sun Wukong's fist is more powerful and faster than Tianjin Fan's. Duran actually felt that her speed couldn't keep up for the first time. In order to get rid of this unfavorable situation, Duran immediately fired a small gas bomb. Although it did not hit Sun Wukong, it slowed down his speed and gave Duran a chance to catch his breath. The air bomb brushed past Sun Wukong and exploded into a large pit on the arena. Ah, it's so dangerous. The power of the air bomb surprised Sun Wukong. Wukong, get ready, I'm about to go up. Ah. Duran stood at an angle, making sure not to harm the innocent, air bullets shooting indiscriminately. Da-da-da-da. Dulan's air bomb was fired at Sun Wukong for free. The host was taken aback by the continuous explosion, which put a lot of pressure on him. The player Duran is so impressive, I hope Sun Wukong is not in danger, he said. Da-da-da. Duran turned the perpetual motion machine inside his body to provide air for his moves, but the frequent use of air still made Duran's body feel exhausted. However, Duran dared not relax and threw it out in anger without any money. Sun Wukong, standing in the field, could clearly feel that Duran's attack had slowed down and his power had also weakened. Opportunity. Sun Wukong immediately made a move, taking advantage of Duran's gaze being blocked by his own attack. Duran only felt a pain in her abdomen, attacked and shook, and her body flew out. Duran saw that her clothes were damaged, and Sun Wukong, with a face full of dust, rushed towards her. Touch. Dulon defended against Sun Wukong's attack, but Sun Wukong clearly wanted to take advantage of his illness to save his life. The attack fell on Duran like a storm, and although Duran was wearing heavy clothes, she was still beaten to tears. It hurt so much. Duran felt that her expression must be very ugly. If it weren't for the fear of losing face, Duran would have called out long ago. Ah! Duran had no choice but to release her anger crazily to suppress her pain. Sun Wukong's fists are really powerful. Ada. Duran finally punched and collided with Sun Wukong's fist. However, the outcome has also been determined. Duran's back has already landed, and Duran has lost. Sun Wukong's contestant wins. So painful, so painful. As soon as the competition ended, Duran felt pain all over her body. This is the first time he has been subjected to such a dense and high-intensity attack, and Sun Wukong's fist is truly unmatched by ordinary people. Dulon, your reckless shooting is so powerful. My clothes are all broken. Sun Wukong pulled Dulon up and he had already admitted to her. Duran pouted, it's not that he hasn't defeated you yet. However, being able to compete with her childhood idol, Duran already felt that this trip was worthwhile. Wukong, you are really amazing, she said. The second round of the semi-finals will be a battle between two Namex. The competition between Magic Sealing Wave and Anti-Magic Sealing Wave. It also broadened Duran's horizons, and the use of such chi was also his first time seeing it, which benefited him greatly. Finally, the deity was sealed by the younger generation and swallowed. The final has finally begun. Sun Wukong and Piccolo both fought in the dark without carrying any weight, and the result was a happy reunion. Sun Wukong also successfully won his first championship in the world's top martial arts club. And Piccolo said a few harsh words before leaving the island, and his next appearance will be his comrades. Dulon and Gue Xian went to prepare Sun Wukong's wedding together in a noisy manner, with a bunch of delicious food waiting for them. After the noise, it's time to say goodbye. However, before leaving, Duran still has one thing to do. Are you saying you want something that can control gravity? Burma asked uncertain. Well, it's the same principle as weight-bearing, but if you change the amount of gravity you bear, the exercise will be more even. Burma frowned and said, I don't have much research on changing gravity, but if you give me some time, you can actually create what you need. Thank you then. Duran didn't know when Burma would be able to create a gravity system, so he decided not to hang himself from the same tree. It seemed like using Plan B and going to Penguin Village to find that perverted doctor. Farewell to everyone, Duran began his global journey, and the first stop was Penguin Village. Although Penguin Village is located in a remote area, it is not completely impossible to find. Duran spent a day determining the route and set off. This time he didn't make a flying machine, but instead used the technique of flying freely to rush on the road. He has a perpetual motion machine like indecisive energy in his body, so there is no need to worry about running out of energy. Found Penguin Village, Duran saw things that could not be seen anywhere else on Earth, the bumpy man climbing trees, and the crying little monster. And there is also the fecal brother who occasionally pollutes people's eyes. Dr. Sichuan Pancake is famous for being useless in Penguin Village, so it is easy to find his home. Oh my, who is it? The girl's voice came out from behind the door. The girl who opened the door was a girl that Duran was very familiar with. Although she was short in stature, she was already a junior high school student named loli. Oh my, I don't know anyone. I'm here to find Dr. Sichuan Pancake. May I ask if he is there? He's out, not at home, Alaire naturally tilted her neck. The person who came is really Duran. Upon hearing that the doctor was not present, Duran was somewhat disappointed. However, Alalei's words made Dulan happy again. You come in, the doctor will come soon. Thank you. Alalei was right. As soon as Duran entered the room and didn't sit down, Dr. Roll Pancake came back, lazily eating snacks. Doctor, someone is looking for it. Who is it? The doctor returned weakly. Duran quickly stood up and said, Hello doctor, I'm Duran. Dr. Sichuan thought for a moment and said, Oh, have you ever participated in the world's top martial arts club? I know the one you were defeated by the champion. Duran didn't expect someone from Penguin Village to watch the martial arts festival, so she awkwardly smiled and said, It's me. I don't know why you came looking for me. Duran explained his intention and wanted to develop a gravity control instrument for Dr. Sichuan. I can do it, but why should I do it? Said the rolling pancake casually, digging his nose. I didn't expect Zhe Wandabing to say that. You don't know how to do it, do you? Duran immediately thought of a way to challenge him. I knew I would have gone to get rid of Dr. Briff, who was a universal capsule. What else can that old man Breve do besides a universal capsule? Said Dr. Rolling Pancake. But don't you also know how to do it? Duran continued to urge. If I can make it, you'll work as a laborer at my house for 3 years, said the pancake disdainfully, just do it. Duran regretted it as soon as he finished speaking. However, the doctor did not give Duran a chance to backtrack. It's a deal, I'll make a gravity system, and you'll work as a laborer at my house for 3 years. Duran's dark days have begun. At night, a dark figure tiptoed out of Dr. Sichuan's house. Nima, not a single member of this family is normal. Duran had already had enough of this kind of fear and had to play the role of a mouse, so he decided to run away. Oh my, does Mr. Duran need to use the restroom? Duran stood still because he heard the voice of the demon. It's Alalei, yes, I'll go to the bathroom. You go to bed first. No, the doctor said if you go to the bathroom outside at night, you'll be knocked on the head. Duran was surprised, but before she could escape, she had already passed out. Duran woke up from the cold water and said, Make breakfast quickly. It's done, come to my laboratory. Don't do it, Duran screamed in agony like a girl. It's really that Alaire's combat power is too high. Duran has seen a lair destroy the Earth more than once, and then the Doctor uses a super time machine to return time to the time period when the Earth was destroyed. Duran already feels that those who are unaware are the happiest. Anyway, she has been quite frightened. In the laboratory, Duran looked bitter and was at the mercy of the Doctor. Since discovering that Duran's body was running out of gas, the Doctor often used Duran as a humanoid battery. If it weren't for your poor physical condition, you would definitely be able to become a transcendent being beyond God, Dr. Zhijuan often exclaimed. In fact, Duran's current battle is almost at its peak before the transformation of the Scion people. It's not easy to survive in Penguin Village. Duran can now withstand 30 times the weight, not because of her amazing talent. But it's because Duran's body has been modified to be very sturdy over and over again in experiments. Collaborating with my experiment, that's much faster than training yourself, said Dr. Roll Pancake. Duran was in pain and happy. 3 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Duran eagerly embarked on his journey with various black technologies sweeping through Zhijuan Pancake. Duran did not use aerial dance this time, but instead explored the entire Earth step by step with a down-to-Earth approach. On this day, Duran climbed a high mountain, which was high but unnamed. Behind the clouds, there is another hole. A small courtyard, although uninhabited, does not appear dilapidated. There is a plaque hanging above the gate of the other courtyard, with the big characters, martial art, written on it. Although Du Lan's combat power is not weak, he lacks the martial spirit of Sun Wukong. He is competitive, combative, and eager to surpass his limits. Duran had traveled all the way and had seen many martial arts schools, but although those martial artists were not considered mainstream in Duran's eyes, their perseverance still left Duran deeply moved. During Duran's training, he took shortcuts and only exercised his body, without experiencing any real life or death battles. So even if Duran's current combat value exceeds that of Sun Wukong, he is still not a match for Sun Wukong. Du Lan doesn't think it's bad. He respects the martial arts school very much, but it doesn't necessarily mean he has to become a martial arts school. Little friend, let's chat with the elderly for a while. As Duran was posing in various seductive poses to take photos, a voice of vicissitudes sounded from behind Duran. Dressed in a white martial arts uniform, Duran immediately recognized the old man as the teacher of the Turtle Immortal and Crane Immortal, who had once sealed the great demon king of Bic, Wu Taidou. Teacher Wu Taidou. Duran was surprised and her chin fell off. Young people nowadays are really impolite. I just came out on vacation, as for the ghostly expression I see. Teacher Wu Taidou had a halo on his head, indicating that he was a ghost. But Du Lan didn't go to roast. I didn't expect to see you, Teacher Wu Taidou. It's rude. It's okay, I also saw that your aura seems to be a descendant of our sect, which made me appear. Although Qi has no attributes, the differences can be seen to some extent through the habits of use it develops. Just like Duran, after using turtle-style Qigong multiple times, Qi will carry the characteristics of turtle-style Qigong, and it is not difficult for experts to recognize it. My name is Du Lan, and I am a disciple of teacher Wu Tian. Du Lan returned. I didn't expect Wu Tian to have many disciples. 300 years have passed in the blink of an eye, sighed teacher Wu Taidou, and then made a gesture of action. Come, let me see what level of disciples Wu Tian has produced. Dulan Khan, do martial artists like to take action so much? However, it's not easy to refuse an invitation from an elder ghost, said Duran. Duran posed in a starting position of Tai Chi. The ritual of martial arts should be returned with martial arts, which is the conclusion drawn by Du Lan after encountering so many martial arts masters. This is my new understanding of Tai Chi, please teach it to teacher Wu Taidou. Duran shamelessly inherited the tradition of the time traveler. Du Lan is right. For martial artists, there is nothing more attractive than martial arts. Du Lan's Tai Chi is actually very bad, but with his combat power already breaking the table, he also has his own understanding of martial arts. Therefore, when using Tai Chi to fight against Wu Taidou, it still gives Wu Taidou a stunning feeling. Not bad, not bad. I was able to come up with such a boxing technique at a young age, and the disciples taught by Wu Tian are really good. Lien said 3 times, and Wu Taidou's excitement was overflowing. Duran suppressed her combat power and fought back and forth with Wu Tai, the teacher, happily. Teacher Wu Taidou has extensive experience and is proficient in various boxing techniques. He also provides guidance when fighting against Dulan, so he has always focused on guidance. Duran felt that his temporary plagiarism of Tai Chi was constantly improving, forming a complete boxing technique. Haha, it's so fun. Those guys in heaven are too pure, it's been a long time since they were so happy. Teacher Wu Taidou stopped his hand and burst out laughing. Thank you very much for the guidance from Teacher Wu Taidou. Dulan benefited a lot. Although Turtle Immortal also taught Dulan, it was more about the key to exercising the body than the martial arts themselves. Although martial arts will not have a decisive impact on future combat effectiveness, it does not affect Duran's gratitude. Thank you, I'm just itching. The martial arts sect is good, but it's a bit rough. What do you think martial arts is, kid? This question is very profound, and Duran has not considered it yet. At a young age, one can strengthen the body, and at a large age, one can protect the country. Teacher Wu Taidou nodded and shook his head. The path of martial arts is actually one word: enlightenment. Understanding heaven and earth, understanding people, and understanding oneself. You're right, but you didn't realize it yourself. Martial arts is not about pursuing something, but expressing one's mind directly. Do you understand? Duran shook his head and said, it's easy to say, but difficult to do. So it's necessary to practice martial arts, refine one's body and mind. Expressing one's mind directly requires practicing martial arts. Well, martial arts is the goal, but the process of honing oneself. I don't seek the ultimate in martial arts, but martial arts is a good choice, Duran thought for a moment and said. Teacher Wu Taidou nodded and said, say hello to your teacher for me. Got it, Teacher Wu Taidou. It's getting late, I have to go somewhere else to see, otherwise I'll waste my vacation. Goodbye, said Wu Taidou, whose body turned transparent and eventually disappeared. Dulan smiled wryly. After seeing this mountain, it should be the place where the Turtle Immortal and Crane Immortal learned their skills. It was a great surprise to see Teacher Wu Taidou, and even mastering Tai Chi was even more joyful. Wu Dao. Perhaps it's a good choice, Dulan smiled. P.S. The world of Dragon Ball is just a transition, and it will soon come to an end. The era of the protagonist pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger is coming, and the next world is the big sword. Duran will fight against various beautiful women in chaos. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Teaching of the Turtle Immortal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Teaching of the Turtle Immortal. After meeting Teacher Wu Taidou, Du Lanjing sat for 3 days and finally realized that she had come to this Dragon Ball world. If she didn't have a good fight, wouldn't it be a waste of time? But if you let someone kill you? Duran thought that his life was just picked up, and dying in battle could be considered a comeback. At least it can be said that he sacrificed it to protect the earth. Walking and stopping, occasionally pulling out a knife to help when the road was rough, Duran felt grateful for another 2 years. Feeling that the Scion people were about to come, Duran decided to go back to the Turtle Immortal house. Master, I'm back. Duran, dressed in leisure, flew to the Turtle Immortal house using his dance technique. Duran, you're back. Turtle Fairy and Klin were both there. Master, Klin, long time no see. Duran brought back many local specialties, big and small. Wow, there's so much delicious food. Klin ran over and took the things from Duran's hand. I had some to eat tonight. Duran entered the door and asked Wukong and his companions about their situation. The Turtle Immortal said they have invited Bulma and Wukong to the Turtle Immortal house for a gathering. Duran knew that Sun Wukong's brother was coming back soon, and the arrival of the Scion Prince Vegeta was only a year away. 3 days later, Burma flew over the sea and arrived at the Turtle Immortal house. Then Sun Wukong came with his son Wufan. But before Duran and the others finished their pleasantries, the unexpected guest Lateis arrived. Sun Wukong's brother Lateis revealed an astonishing truth. It turned out that Sun Wukong's original name was Kakarot and he was a descendant of the famous combat race, the Scion people, in the universe. The purpose of the Saiyans coming to Earth is to conquer it and sell it. As the result can be imagined, Sun Wukong, who was just and pure, would not allow people to conquer the Earth. Lateis took Wufan with him and prepared to send him to the universe for cultivation. Wukong, I'll go with you. Dulan saw Sun Wukong holding the Dragon Ball radar and his face looked ugly. I'll take the lead later. Duran, that's my opponent, don't grab it. Although Sun Wukong was careful of his son, he was still very excited when he saw his opponent. I just need to see the results of my cultivation, I won't compete with you. Duran wanted to see if she could adapt to the killing battle. Klin was originally going, but was persuaded by Duran. The two found Lateis and his spaceship on a piece of wasteland. Lateis, let me be your opponent, Duran stood up. Oh. Lateis could clearly see that Duran's combat power was only over 200, I don't know how to measure my strength, I don't know how to live or die. Stop talking nonsense, if you don't attack, I'll take action first. Come on, humans. Duran was also polite, and the shadow fist instantly came to Lateis' face. The speed is good, but that's all. Ah. Lateis shook his hand and the air bomb shot at Duran, who was right in front of Lateis and couldn't dodge it. Arm defense, although blocking the air bomb, the clothes on the arms are all broken. Counting the number of times Duran has fought in this world can be said to be very few. The real battle of life and death between a master and a master can be said to be non-existent, so he didn't know that the master's moves were only in an instant. Although Duran's combat effectiveness is extremely high, his experience in life and death games is zero, which is why Duran proposed to take the lead himself. The expert's reaction is indeed impressive. Dulan was not injured, but his face was not good. Looking. It seems like it's not time to hide oneself. Duran adjusted the gravity wheel on her wrist to a 1:1 ratio and said, yeah. Ha. The combat power has increased to 900. Lateis still chuckled contemptuously. With just one move, Lateis already knew that Duran was just a rookie. Humph. Duran didn't talk anymore, his speed increased again, and he punched and kicked towards Lateis with the ground. Stupid. Lateis had no intention of evading. Your junior brother is still so naive. Does he think this is a sparring? I don't know. When the Piccolo stood next to Sun Wukong. Although he has strong combat power, he doesn't know how to kill anyone. Yes, Duran doesn't know how to kill anyone. He didn't even kill a chicken before crossing over. So when he thought he was punching with all his might, but in fact, there was still room for his punch. Sun Wukong also frowned. Dulan's skills were good, and it would be a good choice for a competition in sparring. But now that you and I have lost their combat effectiveness, it seems like overseas Chinese sentiment. In the game, Duran kept changing moves, but his damage to Lateis was limited. Damn it, airing bullets indiscriminately. Dulan took out the move he had used to fight Sun Wukong on the arena. Countless air bombs flew towards Lateis, and in between he smiled slightly and shouted, ah. Lateis' hands were invisible, and he managed to block Duran's gas bomb. Duran frowned and had no choice but to use her trump card to strike with all her might. Turtle. Sect. Chi. Skill. The explosion created a big hole, and Duran couldn't see Lateis' figure anymore. Be careful. Behind you, suddenly Sun Wukong shouted loudly. Duran was about to turn around when he suffered a headache and was hit in the back of the head by loli. If an experienced warrior faces the enemy behind them, their first reaction will never be to turn around, but to sweep back. Unfortunately, Duran lacked experience and was seized by loli. Sun Wukong immediately held on to Duran and whispered in his ear, "I'll hold on to loli later, you go save Wu Fan and leave." Duran's head was still a bit dizzy, just nodding. Sun Wukong and loli fell together, and then the Piccolo stood side by side with Sun Wukong. Duran saw that loli no longer had time to pay attention to himself, so he immediately climbed up to the side of the spaceship, smashed open the door, and carried Sun Wufan away. In the battle with loli, Duran realized that he had not yet learned to be ruthless. Sun Wufan in his arms sobbed, although Duran knew that even if Sun Wukong died, he could be resurrected with the Dragon Ball, but Duran couldn't speak up. Duran has decided to start with logistics in the future and slowly step onto the front line. Sun Wukong and Piccolo fought fiercely against loli, but in the end, Sun Wukong sacrificed himself to hold loli and was penetrated by Piccolo's magical light-killing cannon. Sun Wukong sacrificed for the first time, but this time it was also an opportunity. Sun Wukong had the opportunity to learn World King Fist at the World King Star. Wukong's anger has disappeared. loli's anger has also disappeared. Duran knew that the battle was over. "Wu Fan, hold on, we're going back." Dad. Woo. Wukong. Klin and Turtle Fairy also rushed over. The strongest person among the saints, the Prince of the Saints, they already know. The Dragon Ball, they will immediately come. loli's words before his death shocked those around him. After collecting Sun Wukong's body, the Piccolo took Sun Wukong's rice and left. And Burma set off to find the Dragon Ball. Duran and Klin returned to the Turtle Immortal house with the body of Wukong and the Turtle Immortal. At night, Klin was practicing boxing crazily outside the house, while Duran and Turtle Fairy sat face to face in the room. "Master, I feel like my combat power is much higher than loli's, but I still lost." "Duran, you have been living a peaceful life before practicing boxing. And after practicing boxing, you have not encountered any obstacles. So you don't know what you want to do." "I want to defeat the enemy." "How to defeat it?" "Use your own strength." "No, defeating enemies not only requires strength, but also a heart to defeat them. But I don't feel that you have that urgent desire to win." "Master, how can I strive for victory like Wukong?" "Duran, you don't need to be like them. I never wanted you to be what you want to be. Remember, battle is not everything for a martial arts school, and victory doesn't mean everything for a martial arts school. Keep a calm heart. Can this defeat the enemy?" The Turtle Fairy glanced at Dulon and said, "I can't." "Master, I'm angry." Dulon glared at the Turtle Fairy. Ha, Duran, you thought you had all the objective conditions, moves, strength, and speed to defeat your opponent. But you still failed, right? Yes. For martial artists, this result can only explain one reason. That is, you need to be faster, stronger, and more powerful. As long as you hit the opponent, it means their failure. Strike twice the enemy with 10 times the force. Duran realized that if he had the billions of combat power of the Super Saiyan, defeating loli's would not be a matter of one hand. Yes, the words of the Turtle Fairy opened a door for Dulon to overcome the weak with strength. By increasing the gravity will to 30 times, Duran began his arduous and outstanding training. Duran already knew that he couldn't do it with all his might in every confrontation, and the only turtle-style qigong that was fully output was easily dodged by others. So Duran knew that there were only two possibilities for him to defeat the enemy: one was to overcome psychological problems, and the other was to be strong enough to defeat the enemy with just one strike. Duran is not a Saiyan and cannot transform, so his combat power is now infinitely close to that of the Scion before his transformation. However, it is inevitable that he will be caught up by Sun Wukong. So Duran needs to work harder. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Goodbye, Dragon Ball. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Goodbye, Dragon Ball. Duran adjusted the gravity wheel to 40 times and settled in. I have always thought that the perpetual motion machine that generates infinite energy exists within my own body, but this time when I fell asleep, Duran discovered that this perpetual motion machine actually exists in his soul. It looks like a black hole in a scientific documentary, but unlike a black hole, a perpetual motion machine not only does not devour anything, but also provides Duran with a continuous stream of energy. Wake up from the meditation. It has been over a year, and Vegeta has already left Earth. Klin, Wufan, and Bulma have also set off for Namek. Duran cursed inwardly and immediately took his collection of fairy beans to the hospital to find Sun Wukong, and then decided to make a spaceship to go to Namek. Duran had his second spell on the spaceship, but this time he had already informed Sun Wukong to call him when he arrived. As for going crazy or something, it's not a big deal, just eat a fairy bean at most. Duran, aren't you hungry? You've been sitting for a long time. Gravity is 100 times, but Duran feels a bit stressed. Usually, Duran is active under 40 times gravity. Duran shook his head and said, I feel the limit. I need a battle. A battle of death, so after landing, let's part ways. Sun Wukong and Du Lan looked at each other and smiled. Oh, I wish you success. Duran felt Fraser's anger and flew over. Duran knew he needed a chance to break and stand, and he wanted to outdo Sheru and Buo in the end. This was the only chance, so he wanted to take a gamble. Fraser is notorious for being ruthless and ruthless, killing without blinking an eye. The battle between Duran and Fleisa is simply seeking death, and yes, he is seeking death. Darkness, although still on Namek, Duran felt like he was in the depths of the universe. Duran's body was hit by Frisha's super energy bullet, turning into powder. But Duran knew she wasn't dead yet, and Dragon Ball couldn't resurrect her. Thanks to the help of perpetual motion machines, Duran's soul was well preserved. This is Duran's plan, to break through and stand up, to break free from the constraints of her own body. What Duran needs to do now is reshape her body. Sun Wukong fell into a bitter battle with the three transformed Fleisa. Namek was about to be destroyed, and then Klin's tragic death aroused Sun Wukong's greatest anger. The legendary Super Saiyan has appeared in reality. I'm angry, Fu. Li, Sha. Sun Wukong's combat power exceeded 1 billion. At this moment, Duran is still working hard to reshape her body, gradually gathering energy. Yes, Duran's new body will be a pure energy body. In the end, Namek was still unable to escape the fate of destruction, and Duran's soul lost its support and entered the universe. The energy in the universe is chaotic, but fortunately Duran has time to slowly absorb that energy. Finally, 5 years later, Duran's body was completed, but he was lost in the universe and couldn't find his way back to Earth. Fortunately, in those days, Fraser's strength spread throughout the universe. Duran found a planet that knew about Fraser, and it took him another 6 months to finally return to Earth. However, at this time on Earth, the storyline of Dragon Ball is already before the Demon Buo after the Shala game. Duran found the time machine used by Sheru and brought it to Burma's house. He then used the black technology he received from Dr. Zhejuan to have Burma transform the time machine. Although Bulma is still young, Duran is still more willing to trust Bulma than rolling pancakes. The safety factor of things made from rolled pancakes is really not high. When Bulma was renovating the spaceship, Duran returned to the Turtle Immortal house and retrieved the fairy beans and seeds that were stored there. Having made some purchases, Duran was prepared to leave the world of Dragon Ball. Duran did not know his destination, as he had transformed from a time machine into a time and space barrier breaking machine, but he did not know the exact effect. However, now Dulani is bold and not afraid of the unknown world. With all the things collected from Dragon Ball World, Duran waved goodbye to her friends and said, I have backed up all the photos of my previous travels and saved them on the computer at Turtle Fairy House. Goodbye, I'm going to continue my trip. Take good care, Duran. Come back and see us when you have time. Goodbye. Although we only had a short time together, what Duran learned in this world was very useful. Cat Fairy and Turtle Fairy, Klin and Sun Wukong, teacher Wu Taidou and Dr. Zhejuan Pancake, Bulma and Alalay, all taught Duran a lot. P.S. Duran is finally not human, and his non-human journey is about to begin. The common enemy of Big Sword Sisters, Duran, is about to come on stage. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Setting off to search for the humane demon, Big Fog. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Setting off to search for the humane demon, Big Fog, shake, shake. Duran woke up from her sleep, wiped the saliva from her mouth, and opened her eyes in a daze. Crawling out of the space-time machine, Duran transformed it into a universal capsule and hid it. The space-time machine consumes a lot of energy, but fortunately Duran brought a few extra batteries. Surrounded by hills and forests, Duran has not seen anyone yet. Hello, you. Okay, the person is right behind Duran, but he didn't notice. The crusader with golden hair and silver eyes, the #1 warrior of the continent. Dini Shah with a smile. Demons. Humans. No wonder Dini Shah has doubts, because Duran doesn't have a demonic aura in her body, but there is an aura that makes her feel warm. Human, thank you. Duran looked around at the environment and then took out a universal capsule. With a bang, Duran had an extra camera in her hand and then aimed it at Dini Shah and pressed the shutter button. Dini Shah pulled out her big sword hastily. Duran Khan, the big sword in front of me is too nervous. It's just a photo. Is it necessary to draw the sword? Take a photo, understand? Duran pointed to the camera in her hand. Dini Shah frowned and said, take the thing in your hand. Do you also know how to take photos? If you don't understand, don't play around. Duran didn't refuse the beautiful woman's request, but he still wanted to remind her. Duran is used to that camera and doesn't really want to change it. Dini Shah doesn't know what material the thing in her hand is, but it feels very delicate. The screen of the camera remained on the photo taken by Duran, except for Dinish's delicate face. This. Obviously, Dini Shah encountered something she couldn't understand. Why does this black thing reflect a person's appearance like a mirror? This is a camera, you haven't seen it before, haven't you? Duran said, glancing at Denise's outfit. It seems you haven't seen it before. A camera is a machine that preserves the beautiful things we see. Duran took the camera back from Dinish's hand and said, look at that bird over there. Duran pointed to a nearby branch of the tree and quickly pressed the shutter button, just look at it. Dini Shah looked at the strange man in front of her, her whole body shrouded in mystery. Is there any place to stay recently? Duran turned the camera back into a universal capsule. The nearest village will take 2 days' journey, said Dini Shah as she watched the changes in Duran's hand. Like a magical presence, Duran doesn't know the way very well either. She's going to camp out in the wilderness tonight. Fortunately, Duran has a universal capsule with various things inside. Bang! Duran took out the universal capsule from the room and threw it into a relatively wide area. A hemispherical object appeared on the open ground, with light shining through the transparent glass embedded in the hemisphere. Madam, if you don't mind, come in and have a meal, Duran gentlemanly invited. Dini Shah smiled slightly, and the artist bravely walked in through the door opened by Duran. The room is as bright as day, with pure white walls and light-colored furniture, making the room even warmer. Duran took out the food from the refrigerator and heated it in the microwave. Duran didn't know how to cook, but she still knew how to heat ready-made food. The food is simple, sorry for the inconvenience. It's okay, I'm not picky. Dini Shah eats very ladylike. Duran's eating habits became much more unrestrained, and she ate a few large pieces of meat with a wheezing sound. Although Duran is not considered a pure human now, he still needs food and other necessities. It's been a long time since I last had a meal. Duran knew from the time and space machine that she had been traveling for most of the year. After finishing the meal and washing the dishes, Duran taught Dini Shah how to use the bathroom and the bedroom light switch. This room is just one bedroom, one living room, so Duran had to stay in the living room. The computer doesn't have an internet connection, but there are still 1 or 2 games in the computer, enough for Duran to pass the time. Actually, Duran hoped that Dini Shah could invite her to sleep in the bedroom, but it seems that Dini Shah did not understand Duran's suggestion. In the morning, Dini Shah stretched lazily. Even the best hotels on the mainland are not as comfortable. Dini Shah hasn't felt this way for a long time, like a normal human, eating delicious food, taking comfortable bubble baths, sleeping on soft down mattresses, and being in the room. Everything from yesterday felt like she was in a dream. The man named Duran was shrouded in layers of mist, whether it was his camera or this room. Dini Shah saw the opening on the wall and curiously pressed it a few more times, the lights turning on and off. Although it wasn't very obvious during the day, Dini Shah still had fun. Outside, Duran took a deep breath and exhaled all of it. The morning air is good. Duran stretched out comfortably. Good morning. Dini Shah had already changed into her battle uniform and put on her big sword. Good morning, Duran smiled. Are you going on the road? Yes, a demon has appeared in the next town, I need to rush over. Duran nodded and said, good luck to you. Thank you for your hospitality. Dini Shah gracefully left her figure for Duran. Watching Dini Shah disappear into the forest, Duran went into the house to brush her teeth, had a simple breakfast, and then retrieved the universal capsule before starting her journey. In an unknown small town on the mainland, Dini Shah effortlessly killed the demons. Hello, the timid mayor trembled as he handed a bag of gold to Dini Shah. This is the reward. Someone will come over to get it later, the black cloak. You won't admit it wrong. Of course, if you don't recognize it, we won't accept the commission again if there are demons next time. Dini Shah continued to smile, but it scared the village chief into a cold sweat. As expected, just half an hour after Dini Shah left, a man in a black robe stood in front of the village chief. The man in black reached out his hand, and the village chief immediately trembled and placed the gold in his hand. Then half an hour later, another man in black stood in front of the village chief, who cried. Duran weighed the gold in her hand and felt that the organization was really profiteering. Yes, the first man in black was disguised by Duran. Since Duran doesn't have the currency of this world, he can only apologize to that poor village chief. This world is different from the Dragon Ball world. A few days ago, Duran only caught an unnamed and unpleasant animal in the wild, which was about to die. Therefore, Duran's survival ability in the wild has greatly decreased, and she can only find ways to earn some money. Duran did not carefully consider whether the organization would allow demons to retaliate against that village. Duran hung far behind Dini Shah, walking behind and exploring the world. Demons and swords are the two words that Duran hears the most. Such an environment made Duran shake his head, and humans trembled like livestock. Duran actually looks down on people from this continent, but since he has arrived, he must go deep into the masses and understand them. Of course, Duran's careful liver trembled slightly after seeing Dini Shah. I have forgotten the principle of stepping out of the masses and then returning to them. Duran spent her money quickly, and buying herself a suitable set of armor cost Duran half a bag of gold. There were also various accommodations and meals, which had already exposed Duran's gold. So Duran used the same trick again and followed a few bags of gold behind Dini Shah. Unexpectedly, I also had a day when I cheated money, Duran said with self-deprecation, throwing the bag. Since you know it's not good, why bother deceiving? A cold voice came from behind the tree. It turned out that it was Dinish's agent who contacted Dini Shah and asked her to find the criminal who pretended to claim gold. I didn't expect that the criminal was all you. Long time no see, Dini Shah, how have you been lately? Duran felt embarrassed and quickly hid her purse behind her back. I didn't expect it to be you, have you become well aware? Dini Shah drew her big sword. Hey, don't you need to do this? I'll just return the gold and it won't be necessary to use knives or guns, right? If you can repay the money, are you still using scams? Dini Shah keenly caught Duran's loophole. Ahahaha. Duran chuckled foolishly, alright, let me be your assistant and you'll be fine. Are you joking? The big sword in her hand swung, and Dini Shah smiled playfully. Although she knows that the great sword has a rule that it cannot kill humans, Dini Shah is not a qualified great sword. So maybe we'll take action and chop Duran down. Of course I'm serious, how about considering it? Dini Shah thought for a moment and nodded in agreement, okay, as long as you can keep up with my pace. Duran gave Denisa a big smile and said, no problem. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. In the Name of the Moon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. In the Name of the Moon. A team consisting of a large sword and visitors from a different world patrolled back and forth in Dinish's responsible area. That night, Duran and Dini Shah were eating in the room inside the universal capsule when a knock came from the door. I don't mind disturbing you for a moment, said a figure who was completely hidden in a black robe as he entered. If I say I mind, will you leave? Duran said unhappily. Thank you very much, then. Black-robed Jialu leaned in from Duran's side and entered the door. Dini Shah had already sat there upright and said, what's up with Jialu? Can you not be so indifferent to your agent? While you are comfortably eating and sleeping, I am a camper. Black-robed Jialu seemed a bit jealous. If there's anything, just say it directly. Do you want to go around like this? Don't you feel tired? Duran closed the door and returned to the room. Have you eaten? If you haven't eaten, just eat some. I'll treat you differently. Then it's disrespectful, Jia Lu in the black robe said with an ugly smile. The three of them finished their meal in a strange atmosphere, and the black-robed Jialu finally spoke out his intention. The new mission Dini Shah gave you is the expected crusade mission. It's located in Xixi town to the east. Got it, it will arrive in 3 days. Sure, then I'll leave first. Thank you for your hospitality. After Jialu in the black robe left, Dini Shah looked at Duran. What are you looking at me for? Duran touched her face. Duran, you can wait for me here. If I don't come back in 10 days. Dini Shah didn't know where to take out a bag. If I don't come back, you can give this bag to Jialu. Duran took the bag and roughly knew what was inside. I didn't expect you to have private money, she said, don't ask anything else, just wait for me here. Understood, go and get back quickly. Oh. The next day, Dini Shah gracefully left her back for Duran. As soon as Dini Shah left, Duran also tidied up and left. This feeling is really irresistible, Duran twisted. Xianxian town, people have already left the building empty. After Dini Shah entered the town, with her keen sense of demonic energy, she discovered 3 streams of demonic energy on the central square of Xixi town. Number 12 Alice, number 32 Gina, and number 37 Basili. Number 1 Dini Shah. After Dini Shah finished her introduction, she received a look of admiration from Sangu. Although the great sword warrior has exceptional combat power, she is still a half-demon who blends the flesh and blood of demons. However, in terms of personality, she is just an ordinary girl. The worship of low-ranking soldiers towards high-ranking soldiers is like a little girl chasing stars, not a worship of power. This time, the target of the 4 warriors is a high-level awakener, which is why they invited Dini Shah. Duran floated high in the air, watching the battle of 4 people and 1 monster below. It was a landslide. The aftermath of the battle destroyed the entire town, but Duran in the clouds couldn't help but pout. Compared to the world of Dragon Ball, this place is simply weak and explosive. Dini Shah did not go up, but 3 low-ranking warriors were fighting against the awakened crab. With such a level of awakening, Dinish's words only take a few minutes to kill. But in order to train low-level warriors to fight against the awakened, Dini Shah chose to watch from outside the battlefield. The awakened one is 6 or 7 meters tall, and a large pair of pliers is as big as a person. The wind blown by pliers stirred up flying sand and rocks, captivating eyes and astonishing soul. Take out the camera, replace it with a telephoto lens, and Duran records every moment of excitement. So it's really rare to see such a scene. The Awakened's combat power can only withstand the attacks of number 12 Alice. However, no. 32 and number 37 were knocked out of combat effectiveness in just a few strokes. Dini Shah shook her head, drew her sword, and said, "The game is over." She then rushed into the battle circle. It was only a moment before Dini Shah, who was at the master level and had a sense of demonic energy, wanted to kill the awakened one. The crab-like awakener ended in hatred. So strong. Undoubtedly number 1. Dini Shah with a smile, her strongest name is not just a myth. "Thank you so much for your praise," said Dini Shah, standing amidst the flesh heap of the slain awakened one with a smile. Dini Shah smiled, eggplant. As the 4 of them searched for the source of the sound, Duran floated down from the sky. Click. Click. Duran pressed the shutter continuously, recording this exciting moment. Dinish's smile, accentuated by the purple blood, dark flesh, and gray shell, exuded a more mysterious feeling. Dini Shah was very cooperative, maintaining a smile and putting on a handsome posture. This is not the first time. After Duran put away the camera, Dinish's smile cooled down and she said, "Didn't you tell me to wait for me?" Dini Shah also has a common problem with the big sword, which is that she doesn't know how to express emotions. "Don't worry, Dini Shah. Don't say I'm an awakener, even if it's an abyss, I'm not afraid," Duran said lightly. But Dini Shah didn't believe it. "If you don't listen, don't follow me anymore. Don't you believe it?" Duran felt it was necessary to showcase her strength. Now that the new moon has just emerged, Duran looks up at the moon. The moon in the Dragon Ball world was blown up by the Turtle Fairy, and Duran himself also blew up the moon here. However, just thinking about it, it is impossible to say that if the moon is blown up by Duran, it will cause severe climate change on the continent. However, Duran came up with her own solution. "Let me show you my strength, you all open your eyes and take a look." Duran showed a bright smile, turtle. Pi. Chi. Gong. The familiar posture, the scorching beam of light rushing towards the sky, and the target turned out to be the moon. The scorching breath rushed towards me, leaving the 4 big swords stunned. How could such a strong aura gather into a physical entity? With the support of Duran's over 100 million combat power, turtle-style Qigong had already reached the moon in just 1 minute. Duran's goal, of course, was not to blow up the moon, but to sit down and mark it. Duran controlled Turtle Pi Qigong and said on the moon, "Dini Shah, the smiling goddess." Miracle. Everyone on the entire continent has seen the characters appearing on the moon. What else can it be if it's not a miracle? Dini Shah also kept her mouth slightly open, obviously surprised by Duran's actions. This kind of power, even if it's a god, it's just like that. "Duran, who are you?" "Me." Duran took out the camera again and focused on the moon. "I'm just a martial artist," Duran said as he clicked the shutter button. At the same time, Duran felt that his turtle-style Qigong had finally reached its peak, and his control was as pure as fire. "The characters are a bit unsightly, I'm sorry." Duran has been learning the characters on this continent for a while, so the characters on the moon can only be said to be understandable. Dini Shah didn't know how to face Duran now. Seeing Duran's proud expression, Dini Shah finally spoke up, "What move was that just now?" "I am a disciple of the turtle immortal flow, and this move is the essence of my turtle immortal flow, the turtle sect Qigong. Gixianliu. Gipei Gong. I've never heard of it before." "I haven't heard of it before, it's normal. Your organization is just a frog at the bottom of a well. The world is bigger than you imagine. You don't just think that the world is the area of 47 that your big sword is responsible for, do you?" Of course, Dini Shah knows that there are more than 47 regions in the world, but the strength shown by Duran is really too strong. Is this also something that exists on the mainland? Is this the Awakener? Duran kicked the shell that had been chopped by Dini Shah. It seems different from the previous demon, isn't it? Duran knew of course that this was a great demon transformed from the awakening of the former sword warrior. Obviously, Dini Shah and the others don't want to mention the awakening either. The life of the great sword was either a battle death, a black letter sent out, or awakening into a demon. It can be said that after becoming the great sword, the fate of those half-demons was destined to be a tragic ending. "Alright, do you want to have a meal together?" Duran threw out the universal capsule and this time changed to a big house, a small villa with 2 floors up and down. The 3 great sword warriors were once again shocked. The moon was clear and the stars were sparse, and Duran stayed outside happily looking at his masterpiece. After dark, the characters on the moon became even more prominent. Of course, the characters on the moon only caused a small commotion, and apart from the increasing number of believers in the gods, there were not many other changes. P.S. The holiday has ended, and we can only have 1 change per day from now on. I hope everyone can leave more messages. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Look at that, your death sign is twinkling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Look at that, your death sign is twinkling. A few days later, after bidding farewell to 3 low-ranking warriors, Dini Shah welcomed a life-changing encounter. A girl named Kreia by Dini Shah. On this day, Dini Shah posed in front of Duran's camera as usual, acting as a model. Duran continued to take photos in various seductive poses as usual. Surprisingly, there's still one, so this time it's free. Dini Shah had already killed the second demon without any hesitation as she spoke. Just when Dini Shah was about to leave, her legs were hugged. Dirty clothes, dirty face, brown shoulder-length hair, what a little loli that has reached its freshness period. Xiaoyuli's watery big eyes looked at Dini Shah, but Dini Shah was not adorable. Instead, she kicked Loli to the ground without any hesitation. Of course, Dini Shah didn't use much force. If she did, Loli would have been kicked in half by her. Little Lolita didn't give up and stood up, hugging Dini Shah again. Duran watched with great interest as the scene repeated several times, until a villager suggested that Dini Shah take away the child brought by the demon. Dini Shah looked at the disgusted expressions of the villagers around her and knew that if Loli stayed, it would be a dead end. So, like most female swords, Dini Shah picked up Loli and planned to find a new village to send her out. So a day later, Dini Shah sent Loli out, and a middle-aged couple expressed their willingness to adopt Loli. Without hesitation, Dini Shah left Loli behind. Duran followed behind Dini Shah and suddenly spoke out, "What a great little girl. She's doomed." Dini Shah stopped and looked at Duran with a sword-like gaze. "What are you saying?" "I said that little Loli, no, the little girl is doomed. Even if she doesn't die, it's ruined." Duran shook her head and said. "Why? What do you think of the status of your big swords in the mainland? People are all afraid of us warriors." "Yes, the organization called Daejian soldiers, but people on the mainland call them Daejian." "That's good, since they're all afraid of you, would they still be willing to raise the child you're carrying with your big sword?" And I just saw that the couple's eyes were flickering, and I knew they were paying attention to something else. Duran saw Denise's face turn cold and continued, that little girl should be sold by them either to become a lowly prostitute, or to die from enduring unknown torture. I can't think of any other consequences. Why didn't you say it earlier? Denisa was very unhappy. Don't you dislike that girl? Don't you think she's a burden? Denisha didn't answer, but turned around and went straight back. Back there, it's really nice to see those two couples negotiating with a group of big men. Some rough and strong men were really tampering with little Loli, and Denisha went berserk. Swords rise and fall, carrying human life. You're a big sword, you can't kill anyone. Don't kill me, ah. Denisha's face turned frosty as she picked up little Loli. The lake surface under the moonlight, the lake light has no regrets. Denisha told little Loli her name and named the girl who stubbornly hugged her legs Kreia. Duran used a camera to capture the moment when Kreia hugged Denisha, and she was moved to tears. When Denisha killed someone, Duran didn't stop her because it was a bit bloody. Duran kept her eyes closed and pretended not to see it. Although only a few robbers, Denisha broke the iron rule that the great sword cannot kill. But Denisha finally found out, so it was herself who was saved. My name is Denisha, so please call me Kreia. Dni Sha, the girl hasn't spoken for a long time, raised by demons. This may be the first sentence she says in a few years. Koleya, Duran captured another beautiful scene, with two women holding each other for redemption. Denisha and Kreia, the names of the twin goddesses, are both women who suffer hard. I only learned from Kreia that Denisha is the name on the moon, so I became even more dependent on her. When she was imprisoned and abused by demons, she saw words appearing out of thin air on the moon, and at that time she did not recognize words. Just listening to others say, Denisha, the smiling goddess. At that time, she was praying that Denisha would come to save herself. Now her dream has come true, and she has truly been saved by the goddess whose name is written on the moon. Kreia, let's call it Denisha's mom from now on, Duran urged and shamelessly said, Kreia doesn't like me. Kreia turned her head and ignored Duran. In Kreia's heart, Duran was the enemy who fought alongside her to grab Denisha. Although Duran has many good things, Kreia stops caring about Duran every time she receives them. Finally, the expedition team arrived, and for the first time, the expedition team composed of low-level soldiers was easily defeated by Denisha. But the organization won't give up easily, so the strongest crusade in history came. Denisha's face remained calm, making Duran optimistic about Kreia and facing the 4-person expedition team calmly. The top 5 warriors in the 47 warrior ranking are number 2 Prisha, number 3 Inalai, number 4 Sophia, and number 5 Roya Road. The most highly valued potential team by the organization, such as number 2 Prisha, high-speed sword number 3 Inalai, etc., can be said to be the super strong teams in the expedition team. Denisha exhibits exceptional combat skills in combat, and her highly sensitive sense of demonic aura can predict the actions of warriors. Even the fastest high-speed sword in history cannot avoid being completely cracked by Denisa. The only opponent who can become Denisha's opponent is Prisha, who has amazing potential and is the grand swordsman of No. 2. Priscilla, who is one of the best in strength and speed, has the only drawback of lacking experience. The collision of the big sword and the graceful posture made Duran ecstatic. Denisha's big sword flipped over, her defense was impenetrable, and her attack was as swift as lightning. And Prisha had almost no defense, only an attack, only relying on a beast-like intuition to parry Denisha's big sword. Why? Priscilla had just emerged from the organization, with a great wish to sweep away all demons and devote herself to the organization, but now she encountered setbacks. The strongest sword in history, Denisha with a smile. Why are you so strong? Priscilla hesitated, even though you are a sinner, why won't you die? The sword in his hand grew heavier and heavier, why, Dad? But apart from a small wound on her forehead, Denisha can still maintain a smile. In Priscilla's eyes, it was like a god of death smiling. Dini Shah raised her sword high, and Priscilla was killed in the neck. No, Dini Shah. Inalai shouted. She couldn't let Dini Shah kill the most promising warrior in the organization. Dinish's big sword fell heavily, but she didn't cut off Priscilla's head. My heart has also softened, she said. Kreia, we're leaving. Denisa didn't call Duran because she knew Duran would follow without anyone calling. Why? Dad. Dad, Priscilla released her demonic aura. I'm just a sinner. Priscilla, don't release any more demonic energy. We lost, Inalai said loudly. Why? Ah. Not good, the release of demonic energy has exceeded its limit. Ah. Dni Shah must be killed. Priscilla's body has changed, giving birth to wings. Did you awaken? Denisa felt a strong demonic aura. Dni Shah. Prisha stood in front of Dini Shah. I don't want to die. She said, shedding tears as she threw her big sword to the ground. I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore. Dini Shah still felt a bit regretful towards Priscilla. Kill me, Priscilla cried, before I become a demon. Dini Shah nodded and said, I'll help you. She drew her big sword and approached Prisha. Puff. The sound of the sword cutting through flesh and bone. Dini Shah held the big sword and flew out with her hands. Priscilla awakened, her outstretched arm having picked up the large sword on the ground and cut off Dinish's hands. In shock, Dini Shah saw Priscilla's sword getting closer and closer. In just a moment, Dinish's head would be chopped off. Dni Shah. Kreia shouted in terror. The three great sword conquerors who arrived were also watching this scene with fear and fear. A brief collision sound. Ah! Prisha was completely awakened, but her big sword was blocked by a figure. Dini Shah, please put your hand on it quickly, don't put it in the wrong direction, said Duran with a hint of humor at the moment. Dini Shah, sob. Kreia ran to Dinish's side holding her two broken hands. Dini Shah also broke out in a cold sweat, feeling the feeling of death for the first time. I was so naive that I believed the words of the awakened one. Duran steadily blocked Priscilla's sword, using only one index finger. This is the first time I've been so angry, he said unconsciously. Duran had already fallen in love with Denisa. Ah, I'm hungry. After killing you, I'll go find some internal organs to eat. After awakening, Prisha didn't even pay attention to the Durans. A joke is just a monster, Duran sneered. Duran successfully angered Priscilla, and the sword danced like a raging wind. But Duran only used one finger to block all of Priscilla's attacks. A few big swords were stunned. Are they still human? Duran's speed has completely surpassed the imagination of the big swords. This time, I will also do the same for the people. Duran paused with his right hand and stopped Priscilla's sword in the air. It's just a monster, that's all. The intuition of the Prishan beast felt Duran's killing intent. She wanted to escape, but her instinct was unwilling to give up the big sword. Die. Duran snapped, lifting his left hand into a palm and pushing it towards Priscilla. Ah! The speed of light emitted by Duran's left hand shot towards Priscilla's upper body, enveloping her entire body. The beam of light dissipated, leaving Priscilla with only 2 legs left. Prisha, with the power of the abyss, died under Duran's air bomb. Duran turned the large sword sandwiched between her fingers and threw it to Kreia's side. Here it is for you, she said. Kreia knew there was no danger anymore and was overjoyed to pull out the big sword, but unfortunately her strength was too weak to push. Priscilla's big sword was taken by Inalai and she said, Girl, I can't give you this sword. Although Priscilla was killed after awakening, we still need to erect a tombstone for her. Kreia eagerly watched as Inalai took the big sword, then glanced at the gaze that Dini Shah gave her, only to see the big sword turn into a tombstone. Your swordsmanship is really unique. Duran stood beside Dini Shah and Kreia. It's just tradition, the seal of the big sword is even more important than our name, said Inalai with a hint of sadness. Dini Shah, our campaign has failed this time, but the organization won't let you go. What are you going to do? Although Inalai has always regarded Dini Shah as her opponent, she still cares about her. Don't mind if I interject, Duran suddenly appeared. Duran's strength is evident to all. My suggestion is that Dini Shah and Kreia can travel with me. Duran felt her face must have turned red. This time, Dini Shah surprisingly didn't speak, while Kreia looked left and right, unsure of the situation. It seems good to go and see this vast world, Dini Shah thought for a long time before politely agreeing to Duran. Duran shouted yes in her heart, this is her first love. Bang! The space-time machine has transformed from a universal capsule. Duran picked up Kreia, jumped into the space-time machine, and then Dini Shah also came in. Goodbye, big swords. The space-time machine rose into mid-air and disappeared into the void. Enalai looked at the sky in a complicated way, then turned around and said, let's go. There's still a lot to do. Oh, the big swords shouted loudly. As soon as a few big swords left, Duran's space-time machine appeared again. Because Duran found that there was not enough energy on the spacetime machine, he had to fold it back. Don't worry about why time and space opportunities are like cars without gasoline, they are just small details. Since we're back, let's take a stroll around this world first. I still have a lot of photos to take. Whatever you want. Okay, then set off and travel around the world. End of this chapter.